everybody. Welcome back. It's the Nourish Spot Hour, and I'm so happy to be here with you again this weekend. And I'm glad you all have tuned in to join me as we talk to a very special guest today. I have with me today New York State Assembly member Alicia Hyman, and I am tearing. I am truly excited to have her here in the studio with me today because she is running for Queensborough president. Right. And I believe, as a child of Queens, I believe that we need way more women in power. And so I'm glad to have her here today to talk to me about her aspirations, what she hopes to achieve, and much more importantly, why we should vote for her. So before we get started, I just need to tell you that the Nourish Spot Hour is brought to you by the Nourish Spot. I am the CEO. And the Nourish Spot is open today until 7 p.m. We're located at 10705 Guy R. Brewer Boulevard in Jamaica, Queens. And if you can't get there, you can actually download Uber Eats, DoorDash, Postmates, Grubhub, or Seamless, and they will deliver your order straight to your door. So come, let us nourish you. Now, with that, I'm going to turn my attention because I got 1,000 questions for her. She does. I'm going to turn my attention straight to State Assembly Member Alicia Hyman. Alicia, thank you very much for joining me here today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Now, if I could just get my eyes and stop tearing, I'm going to start with the first question. Well, first, why do you want to be Queensborough president?
I want to start by saying thank you, Dawn, for always stepping outside your comfort zone. And I'm sure it took a lot for you to open a business.
Yes, it did.
Dawn, you're at every networking event. If it's about Queens, you're there. You're always moving your business. And I think that you are the epitome of what we want small businesses to do. Not just sit back and wait for business to come to them, like you open a storefront and you just expect people to come in. You go get the business.
Yes,
whether it be catering events or introducing people to healthy living. I think that's important. And I love your social media.
Thank you.
And I love the Roslyn salad. Which
Yes.
for 2 days. And I think your location is great because you have foresight in seeing what's coming, especially to the Southeast Queens, Jamaica area. And for your business to be there tells me that you're looking at a larger picture of that whole area is changing.
Yes.
And you're in a prime position to capitalize off of that area. So I just wanted to say that to you before we start.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. And, you know, again, as a child of Queens, I grew up in this neighborhood. My grandfather, I actually bought my grandfather's home. It's the home that my mother grew up in. And I don't know why, as a young girl, I always wanted that house, but I did. And luckily, God made it happen. I bought it, and after working, 30 plus years, I got additional help to open up a business, and I'm just so very glad that it manifested, and I'm in business with my children, and we get to employ the children of Southeast Queens. It's perfect. So now I need help, and who better to be in the seat of Queens than someone that I admire and someone that I respect, and also someone that knows what raising children alone is like, okay? So I want you to tell us why we should vote for you as Queensborough president.
So I just want to tell you a bit about my story. I wasn't born here. I was born in England. My mom's Jamaican, my dad's Guyanese. Grew up in England until I was about 10, came here to Hollis, Queens. This is in the early 80s, my brother and I, and it was culture shock. You know, growing up in England, we were sheltered. Everything's multicultural. But coming here, I understand now why my parents said this was where we were supposed to be. The culture and the access to education for Black people, they felt was better in this country. And when they visited, they said, this is where we want our children to grow up. And this is in the 80s when you have graffiti, you have hip hop, you have crack, was the crack epidemic. But somehow Yvonne and Stanley said this is where they wanted to be, in Queens, not in Teaneck, New Jersey, in the suburbs, not in Brooklyn with other family members. We moved to Queens by ourselves. And my parents had money. They bought one of the foreclosed houses. It was boarded up. I remember like, okay, we're here, and going to school. And over the years, going away to college and coming back, Queens to me had the best to offer. And by that I mean the diversity that's here, the development that's here, the families that are here, the hard working class individuals that are here. We get on the train or the buses every morning, we leave, we go to work. And I did that for many years, from when I got back to Queens after grad school till I ran for the assembly. I was a commuter. I chose to take the Long Island Railroad because I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to pay for the preschool part of the day. I would be there to drop my child off at school and still make it downtown in 40 minutes, door to door. That was a big deal for a single mom, because I had to be there before 6 o'clock, before they start charging you extra to pick her up from school. So I understand the working class communities and how hard it is for transportation, for finding good schools. It shouldn't be by a zip code. Good schools should be all over this borough. I understand how hard it is for housing. One of the questions you're gonna ask me, and I just wanna kind of bring it up now, is like, I live in Rosedale. I live in a co-op. I wanted to buy a house, but as a single person, I couldn't afford to buy a house. I understand what it's like, living paycheck to paycheck. You make choices, I'm not walking around with the Gucci or the Louis Vuitton bag because, you know what? After school money has to be paid for. And now, I thank God I can say I have an adult. She's in college. This is her last year, praise God, I hope. Jesus. I hope this is her last year. But it tells me that living this American dream includes us all, and we're entitled to it. And I want to make sure that in a borough that has one of the largest immigration populations, a large world-class cuisine and restaurants and industry and tech, we have to make sure that for all of our children and our seniors that we're all included. And I want to be the person at the head of the table, helping our community make the right decisions for this borough each and every day.
Well, that sounds lovely. And that you gave me many segues into my question. So here's my first one. Do you believe that our main streets, downtowns across Queens, are healthy and successful? And if not, what would you do to change that?
So I think, I always believe that success is in the eye of the beholder. When you go through different neighborhoods, you'll see what's important to them, right? If we're in the Jamaica area, so if you go going north of Hillside, you see there's a lot of South Asians that have moved in and they've bought restaurants and they've bought vegetable places and they've stands and they've built temples and they've built their mosques. That tells me that that's what's important to that community, and Queens has afforded them that. If you go into other parts of the community, you see more retail, like Jamaica Avenue, where I got my first job in the Coliseum Mall, because I was undocumented for a while, and the guy hired me. His name was Kefim. He hired me and he didn't ask me for any papers. And for me, a 15-year-old navigating that, I knew I wanted to make some money, but I knew I had to be careful of who I told my status to. So to me, it's like all of our neighborhoods have the potential to be better. And by that, I mean, it's important that I think neighborhoods have bids when it comes to the commercial areas. That areas that are zoned for certain densities, that we're not trying to throw everything all in at once. And I think one of the things we don't want to happen is, as a development comes, what about our green space? What about our parks? What about all of these concrete buildings are here? I'm really concerned as the Jamaica areas, like Rufus King Park on any weekend in the summer is packed to capacity, and more buildings are coming. Where did we go wrong in making sure we have enough green space for our children, and not just for our children, for our families, for the men who like to play soccer, for the men who like to play basketball. We have to make sure that every business and every community has a balance. And so as we make our way in this development, I think communities always need to reinvent themselves because young people need to be able to come back here and pay their, be able to pay for rent. But I also feel that when it comes to our commercial businesses, we have to make sure that we're helping them. And I think in government, we're not removed. Government is us, and I want more, and you do this very well. And I wish I could duplicate you and put you in every business, but I think one of the things we have to realize is that you can't always wait for things to go wrong or to happen. You have to be proactive, and a lot of times we don't hear about things until it's too late as an assembly member to say, oh, I could have, let me see if we can work with SBS or QEDC or Chamber of Commerce, or if we can get you to do a joint venture, or, sometimes to get capital or find you the services for a lawyer, or maybe we need to get some free tax help, because these are the common problems that we get. Opening the business may be easier than sometimes maintaining the business.
It's true.
And that's what we're trying to avoid when it comes to commercial and small businesses.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And it's exciting for me as a small business owner. What's important for our borough and city right now? Is it building new apartments and homes? And I know you talked about the green space. Or is it rehabbing and expanding and better utilizing the existing homes and storefronts?
So I think it's both. I don't think you can do one without the other. One of the main things, and this is what's been most interesting about my journey across the borough in the last, I would say, year or so, is that it doesn't matter what community you're in, the problems are very similar. And by that I mean, it's in Jackson Heights, and their concerns were that we have businesses closing, and same thing over in this part of Southeast community. We have businesses that have closed, or businesses where the taxes were too high and the lease went up and they couldn't afford to maintain leases. So it's not just one part of this community or of this borough. It's all over the borough, and it's all over the 5 boroughs. There's a lot of news stories lately about leases are becoming too expensive.
True.
So how do we combat that? And I know we've had people from SBS Small Business Services come and do walkthroughs of the community, and they may offer grants. We've had like some people who want to sell the business, or maybe they're too old, and they want their children to take over the business, and the child doesn't want to take over the business. There's those problems, and they don't want to close it. The community loses the service. Right. But I also believe we have to make sure we have campaigns, not just when it's Small Business Week around the holiday times, but constant campaigns throughout every commercial corridor that these are the services that these businesses can offer. One of the things, again, Dawn, that you do well is you sponsor a lot of events, and you're very visible so people know, hey, this is a Nourish spot. I can stop by here on my way to or from work. I can hire her to cater an event. And I think it's that marketing tool, and we have a lot of people who are experts. So in a borough president's office, one of the things I really want to do is coalesce all of these talents that we have and make sure that we have, and it may sound corny, but Queens has a lot of neighborhoods, and we have to make sure that we're using our local experts. Yes. And if I have to bring them in as committees for the Queensborough office, then that's what I'll do.
That's lovely.
I think we have to think outside of the box. I'm a strong believer in that.
I think that's lovely because you're right. There are a lot of people, including myself, that have years of experience of doing a specific vocation that we could actually bring to bear on behalf of the borough. And what better place to start as at the top of the borough?
Everyone knows where Queensborough Hall is.
Yes, we do.
And to me, that should be the center where everyone knows they can get help.
That's wonderful. So how do you feel, because you mentioned this earlier about being a commuter, and I would tell you this, when I was commuting to work every day, I was going all the way to Newark, New Jersey. I actually traveled, every day. Every day I traveled the Long Island Railroad to Penn Station, and then the New Jersey Transit 2 stops to Newark. And I would tell you that initially I started with the subway, but I realized it just took too long.
Yes.
And it was not, I couldn't depend on it. And so I knew that the Long Island Railroad would get me there door to door, 20 minutes from Jamaica to Penn Station. And so that's why I chose that train. So how do you feel about transportation options currently available across our borough? Do we have enough affordable options? And if not, what will you do as Queensborough president to increase them?
I think when we say like affordable options, affordable to who?
Okay.
$2.75 on the bus or the train seems okay, but for someone who is working minimum wage, paying rent and may have children, $2.75 and it's the rates have gone up. It could be a deterrent, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, as we talk about services, I'm paying $2.75 and the service gets worse and not better, or it's been delayed and I can't tell my boss again the train is late. And we have Andy Byford here, and that's he has improved stuff, so doesn't go unnoted.
Yeah.
But for the average person, I think, as a commuter, is trying to find when you find your path to work,
Right.
and it works, you'll
like
do
a
it.
happy medium.
You're happy, a medium.
Right.
So with that, the Long Island Railroad, when I left, and it was over $200 for a monthly pass. And I remember how cost prohibitive some months were like, I don't know if I have the amount of money, these discounts are not enough. So one of the things we were able to do in the assembly, with the help of the Senate, was we said there's no way that we can't have every Long Island Railroad station that's in Queens have a reduced rate into the city, especially the communities of Southeast Queens and Northeast Queens, which you live more than a mile away from the train station.
Yes.
So it shouldn't be that if a railroad station is in your vicinity, you should be able to ride that train for a reduced rate. And we were able to accomplish that.
Yes.
So if you live in city ticket. If you live in Laurelton, St. Albans, Rosedale, Locust Manor, you can get into downtown Brooklyn within 30 minutes for $5.
Yes.
And for some people who are going downtown Manhattan, this is great. They'll take the city ticket into the city and into Brooklyn, and then they go downtown, right?
Exactly.
And you have to think that's a relief to them.
Right.
So the other part of that is now we want to make sure we can do a 2-pen station. The railroad has, after a lot of push. So, and then this is one of the other things I want to say. It doesn't happen with just one of us legislators. It took a team of us to constantly say, this works for us, we're going to push back on congestion pricing, this is what we need. So it doesn't happen just one. And that's the thing with the borough president's office. It's not just the borough president, it's the borough president and all of the elected officials and the community boards. It is a community effort. Queens, we have a transportation issue. We need all of us to push the MTA on this $51.5 billion capital plan.
Okay.
What is in it for Queens?
Good.
Are we gonna get our fair share when we know in the past we haven't been getting our fair share when it comes to items? And I think that's what we have to push on. When the weather is bad out here, it can take you 2 or 3 hours to get home. We understand things happen, but for a commuter, that's unacceptable in the city as advanced as New York, especially for the residents of Queens. And that's definitely one of the things I'm gonna push for is transportation. We have to do better when it comes to the residents of Queens.
Well, that's excellent, and I want to put in one little plug. So something that I've realized, for us that live in Jamaica, not far from Jamaica Station, but along the Long Island Railroad, they closed all of the stations that used to be in our community, like the South Jamaica Station before you get to Jamaica Station. Is there any appetite for opening up some of those stations in our hoods instead of us having to go all the way to Sutton
So I think
Boulevard?
that's definitely a discussion. So you're a little older than me, don't kick me out.
It's okay.
So I don't remember that.
But they're there. They're boarded up.
So I think that's definitely a conversation that we need to have. Let's look at all of these places that have closed. How much will it take to rehabilitate those stations, and let's open them up.
Okay.
I really think when you look at York College, which for Southeast Queens is an education capital, that it should look and have the feel and have the accessibility of a station right there. And that's what you're talking,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So to me, that's a no-brainer.
Okay.
But we have to sit down, see, because if it's here, there's other places in the borough of Queens that used to have stations
Yes.
or have access to rail,
Yes.
and we're not using it.
We're not using it.
Using the ferries are great, but it still cuts out a part of the Rockaways, you know? So if you live on one part of the Rockaway, you'll take it.
Right, but
and if you live another part, you won't.
You don't have access to it.
You don't have access.
Yes.
And I think, we have transportation as we move forward as people, the advancements get better and better. We should not be stagnated in this borough when it comes to.
And then I have one more question about transportation before we move on to the other one, and it's about the bridge from Howard Beach into Rockaway, where you have to pay that toll. Why do Queens residents have to pay a toll inside Queens?
So I know my colleague, Stacey Pfeffer Amato, if she could hear you right now, she'd be like, yes. We fought with her to make sure that we would reduce that for the people, the residents. Now, I'm not sure if it's what the exact plan final looks like, but in the last fiscal budget, which we passed in April, that was one of the things that we pushed for Queens.
Thank you, God.
Is making sure that we do some, because it made no sense.
It doesn't. I shouldn't have to pay. If I want to go visit a family member or a friend in Rockaway, I shouldn't have to pay because I live in Queens. So
it's the only place that does that.
And honestly, there is a freeway to get to Rockaway, but it just takes you out your way, where you can just go straight over the bridge and you're there. So hopefully, Assembly Member Pfeffer Amato. Congratulations to you and the rest of the legislature for working on this, because this is something that's really important to me, and I know a couple of my friends as well. So let's move on to the next question. Well, before we do that, I have to do a shameless plug. You are watching the Nourish Spot Hour. I'm Dawn Kelly, CEO, and the Nourish Spot is open now, 10705 Guy R. Brewer Boulevard, Jamaica, Queens. We're open till 7 p.m. Yeah, go get yourself either a pineapple ginger juice or a berry crazy smoothie. They're both very nutritious, full of antioxidants. That one is full of ginger, so it'll help you with your digestive system. Go on in and allow the young people from this area. We got Carla in there. She's from Woodside. We have Amina, who's here from South Jamaica, Queens. And then we have Ruth, who's from Left Rack. So I have a bunch of kids from Queens.
All bases.
Yes, working there, ready to assist you. And if you can't walk in, you can contact DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub, Postmates, or Seamless, and they can deliver your menu offering that you get to customize the way you want to, straight to your door. So with that, let's move on to our questions. So this has a little bit to do with transportation too, because it's a big issue. Some people in our community say that we have parking challenges. What do you think? And how would you mitigate those concerns or change the situation? And let me just say, I live in the neighborhood. I just don't have a business in the neighborhood. And I would tell you, when I move my car in the morning to go to the store, I'm so sad because I know when I come back, I won't be able to find a parking space. And that will make me go in my driveway. Now, I'm fortunate that I have a driveway, and don't get me wrong, but usually by the time I get back to my driveway, it's blocked because somebody was so, worried about getting to work or school on time that they did not pay attention when they were parking, so they were parked in my driveway. So tell me, State Assemblywoman, how can we mitigate those concerns or change the situation?
And this is it's so interesting that in parts of the city there's a move to get rid of cars. Not driverless cars, but to reduce the amount of cars with congestion pricing and so forth. Okay. So I think this is a way we have to be creative. And people compare New York City to London or Copenhagen and the bike culture.
Yes, Amsterdam. Yes.
They're not as big as New York City.
Sure.
Number one. You're talking about 8 million people in New York City, right? And for Queens, and this is particular to Queens, and if you go to any civic meeting, the older residents are upset because they can't park on Jamaica Avenue or near Jamaica Avenue and they want to go shopping. It's a deterrent for them. So to that I say that we have to do better with public transportation.
Okay.
That if I know I can walk out to Guyabu Boulevard, Merrick Boulevard, Main Street in Flushing, Woodside, Woodhaven, if I know I can walk out and every 5 minutes or 8 minutes the most, especially depending on the weather, a bus would be there that's clean, efficient, reliable, then that would say people would not want to use their cars.
Right.
But because we're not there, we can't say, they can't park there.
Right.
The other part is, if you go to a lot of other states, they have a bike culture, but the buses are able to carry the bikes on the front
right
or the
on
back.
the front of the back, like in Martha's Vineyard, you could put the.
And not just Martha's Vineyard,
you could
there's
put
many states.
Yeah, you could put the bike right in the
Yep.
front. Yeah.
There are many states where you can put bikes places, right?
Right.
Even on the Long Island Railroad, like people just can't get on with their bikes, have to have
Right.
like a permit. We're telling people we want this to be less of a car culture, but we're not giving them the opportunities, the avenues to say you can put your bike here, you can hang it up here. It's a bad day. We know you're not gonna take your bike everywhere. You can hang it on the bus. We're not doing that.
Right.
So when I see, and we don't have the transportation system where we want it, you can't just put. And I believe bike lanes are important.
Okay.
Communities, you will see more and more people, I believe, riding bikes. But
And scooters, because I see
there's a
people
lot
on
more
those
scooters now.
stand-up scooters too.
And there is a lot of regulations coming around that, not just for deliveries. A lot of young people.
Oh, right.
And if you live in Queens, you can live a mile away from the bus stop, right? You took the train, you took the bus, and you're still a mile away from home.
Right.
Those options should be there. So I want to say you can't change the culture without changing everything. You can't still keep giving buses pokey awards because they're so slow and then tell people we don't want you to take your cars.
Right.
So you can't just say, to me, you can't just say, oh, we have an HOV lane or not create more HOV lanes or incentives for individuals not to drive their cars. So for Queens, we will continue to have these log jams where people who drive want to be able to drive into the city, hang out, and come back.
Right.
But unless we have great public transportation choices that I know I can get on the railroad, the price is not cost prohibitive, it's clean, then people will do it.
Right.
So I think that we will continue to have parking and transit problems. We have to look at what other states or other countries are doing, but let's be real. This is New York, right? I can always say New York.
Right.
And we're in the borough of Queens.
Right.
And we have a car culture here because if you go, the more east you go, the less accessible transportation is.
Exactly.
So we have to, if you want to build bike lanes, bike lanes, but have better busing
Right.
and better transit for people to say there's an alternative.
Well, my business mind is working right now. I'm like, business opportunity. Let's build whatever we can for the Long Island Railroad to outfit one of those old trains so that the bikes can just go on to the train. You get a ticket, you go right on to the train. I mean, there's a possibility. So if you're listening out there, business opportunity for you. So now, here's my next question. If you could change one thing in the Queens zoning codes, what would it be and why?
So I think, and this is the thing, I don't have all the answers for this, like the R1s or the R10s and the densities and so forth. And as we see the development that's going on now, especially in this Jamaica area, what concerns me is that we're building and then the affordability factor is not always there. Now, where we are in Southeast Queens, it's really easy we see our homes. We want young people to be able to come back home. And by that I mean, and I've said this several times, I want my daughter to come home, but I would really like if she could afford to live somewhere else, right?
I understand.
I love her, but
I understand.
you want your kids to be successful. So having said that now, we have to be very careful of how we zone areas, right? So if you take certain communities that are very home dense, and then say you're going to build, high density residential apartments, those apartments have to be in different income bands so that you can afford people who maybe, and this is another thing we have happening, we have a lot of seniors who want to age in place, so we don't have enough senior housing. A lot of people want to age in place, but they lost their houses and they've been put in a house or like a SRO, a single room occupancy, in a house with people who are not their age, and then you have clashes, because we get complaints in my office, in the assembly office, all the time.
Okay.
And I didn't even know Department of Homeless Services was doing this, is putting people in SROs, in houses, and mixing generations.
Ages, yeah.
And that, we've had a lot of complaints about that.
Okay.
So, and this is where our community boards and their knowledge is very important, whether there are 10 on community board 5, 1, 13, or 12, that you really have the knowledge on the community board when it comes to zoning.
Okay.
And we have early voting that's going on now,
Yes.
which started today at 10 a.m. I hope everyone knows on their card where they're going to vote.
I got my card.
You just can't show up somewhere and say, I'm here to vote. You have to know exactly where it's designated. Where are you designated?
I think it's 40. I got my card right in my wallet.
Okay.
I walk around with it.
Because
voting is important to me. Very important. It always has been.
When I became a citizen, that was one of the first things I did.
Yeah. It's very, very important to me. So I want to ask you another question, because I've been hearing about it a lot here in Jamaica, and I don't know about it. What are opportunity zones, and what does that mean for Jamaica?
Okay, so I happen to know this because of a really smart young man named Damon Wilkinson, who's been very helpful in in teaching me this.
Okay.
So this is one thing we could say about who's in the White House. Opportunity zones are designations for communities when it comes to development. And certain areas of Jamaica, not all, there are certain areas that have been designated opportunity zones in which investment can come in, and that way the tax structure that's given to those people who invest is different. Like, you don't have your capital gains tax is less.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if your business is in that area, but there are parts of Jamaica, I think in the Liberty Avenue, maybe going east, and I think going west of it, where there are designated opportunity zones, which are ripe for development, which have less tax rates, which we can get investment into the communities. So, for instance, if you're an auto shop owner, which I happen to know, I've had my car's been serviced by Quinn Smith on Merritt Boulevard on 108th Street for 15 years. I've been going to him. One of the things he was talking about, like, what if I wanted to sell my property and build apartments? And I'm saying, well, this would be great because you're right in the prime development area. So how would he, a single, older guy, who says, I want to do some investment, I don't want to give up, I still want to be a, owner, how would I do that? And that's when we bring in people like from the Small Business Association at York College, and people forget the minds in that place have been very helpful in me understanding the economic development aspects of this job. And he said, well, this is money going around. That's one of the things Trump did, but it's not just for people of that ilk, of that income band. It's for people like us who are interested in development, who could find people that will invest in them, like joint venture capitalists. Or people that maybe have some thousandaires who may have unfortunately, maybe someone passed, or maybe they've done really well for themselves. It's the investment the investment capabilities that can come to a person, and the taxes, as we know, like when Amazon was coming,
they gave them tax breaks.
It's basically like that, but not on the front end. It's like on your capital gains, you don't have to pay those taxes.
And that could be great.
And it can be great.
That could be great for you, especially during tax time when it's time to pay up. So we need to do more education, I think, around opportunity zones.
I agree.
For people in our community, because if that is, the time is now, right? Because all the building is going on now. So I'm going to figure out how to work with you on that.
What's important about that, we do a lot of workshops, right? But my thing with Damon, I'm this is not just a workshop.
No.
It's not
something
hands-on.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can go to one night and from 6 to 9 and know everything.
No.
It has to be something
like a class.
Yeah. And I'm working, I go back to your college, and the SUNY EOC, I can't forget about them. But it's something almost like a continuing ed program curriculum. Like you could go because taxes, this stuff changes,
Yes.
and it's saying like, okay, we're a short-term series, maybe 6 classes
That's a
from
good
start
idea.
to finish, because it's not something that we can say so sponsoring it and then that be it.
No, you're
and
right.
I think on the borough president's level, that's something that could be done because it's all over the borough.
Right.
Let us capitalize on that.
Borough-wide, yes.
And make sure that we have the classes throughout the borough so that those people who are eligible should be able to go and get that money.
Right, and take advantage.
Right.
Definitely. Okay, so now, you talked a little bit about this earlier, but I want to give you a chance to talk about some more. How do you plan, once you're elected, how do you plan to involve Queens residents in the decision-making process across our borough?
So one of the things I've noticed is that in Queens, we do a lot of programs, a lot of the hearings and so forth sometimes take place during the day.
Right.
And you have a large working class borough, a lot of those things should take place in the evening.
Yeah.
You can still have the day ones, but it should be like a 2-parter or
Right.
however much it takes.
Right.
It also means that, working with elected officials in each area, because you have a city level and a state level and a congressional level where resources are coming.
Right.
With those resources, we can really galvanize how do we move money for our parks, how do we move money for our schools. The borough president's budget is $70 million in capital.
Say that again.
70 million dollars in capital. And I think, you want to make sure if that's combined with state and city money for different areas, if
That
you
could go
say
a long
it could go a
way.
long way.
Yes.
And that's where it takes real concerted planning. And I know there are a lot of people and a lot of personalities, but to me it's about if we really want to make an impact on what we're doing in this borough, we have to work together. And that means with the community, respecting our community boards, making sure that you have people on the community boards who are really, you need your institutional knowledge, but you also need innovation.
Right.
And those two have to work together to get things done. With the city and state electeds working together, making sure that as you go to Albany for your session, this should be a Queens ask. Let's sit down and get it done. Let's see, what areas of Queens really need those big, pots of money to make sure we change people's lives for the better. So I really believe in working in the Assembly, being one of 18 delegation members to the Assembly, the second largest delegation to the New York State Assembly, tells me that we have power, we have the potential to really turn things around. And that's why, again, why I'm running, I'm saying that we need to make sure we're making people's lives better now. They can't wait.
Right.
We have to make the development that's going on now.
That's right.
Let us get together and work together with me as a borough president,
Right.
just making sure that we really make those impactful changes on people's lives.
Well, you gave me a question that's not on this, but it's kind of a question and a statement. So you talked about working together. And one of the things that gives me great joy about the elected officials in Southeast Queens is that you all do work together. Like, I love, I'm trying not to get choked up here, but I love that when I show up places, that you're all there.
Mm-hmm.
Not just you. Congressman Meeks is there. State Senator Leroy Comey's there.
Mm-hmm.
New York City Council member Danique Miller's there. Adrienne Adams there.
Mm-hmm.
Donovan is there.
Mm-hmm.
You're all there.
Mm-hmm.
You're working together. And so, will that change if you're elected Queensborough president? Or will the fact that you already have cultivated strong relationships with Rory Lanceman is always there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me make sure I say everyone shows up. So will that change, or will the fact that you already have these strong cultivated relationships, people know that your word is your word, will that make the job easier for you?
I think it will get better. I think the changes, it will get better.
Okay.
I think the changes, the resources are better.
Okay.
I think the changes that we know each other, we know how we work, our staffs work, and none of us do this without great staff, and I have to really say that. And the staffs communicate all the time about events that we'll do together, and I've heard that a lot in the last couple years, that they never really saw electeds doing that. I remember before, but I just know how I am, and especially with women, when you have women in leadership, it's not just about what's best for them, it's about what's best for everyone. The way we operate is just about collaboration and changing children and families. We give more. We're the egos are not always sorry for the men who it's really about making sure that collaboratively we are changing things. And I've seen that in the New York State Assembly as more and more women have come into office.
Yeah.
I've seen that, been on the Community Education Council for 10 years as a volunteer parent and working every day,
Right.
that it was the women who really moved to make sure that we had, money for our playgrounds, money for our teacher training, and money for our principals. So I believe in the leadership that we have. You can't do this on your own. And so I feel it will change for the better on that level. Not to say that the borough president is not doing a good job now.
Oh, I think she's wonderful.
Right,
Yeah.
she really is.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I think, that's why you need women in leadership. And we were talking before we started about Black women and being in those rooms where decisions are made. Because the decisions that we make are for generations to come, and we just have to make sure we're making the right ones.
Right, and it's inclusive decisions,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's talk a little bit, one more question, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about you, a little bit more personal about you. So here's a question that I found online and I thought it was lovely, so I have to ask it to you. If you received, or I would say the Queensborough President's Office received a $1 million grant to use for the borough any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why?
I think one of the things we talked about was small businesses. I would really try to use that money and put it in all of the bids or local development corps around the borough, because when you have good thriving businesses in local communities, I think that says a lot about the community feeling using what's right here on the boulevard instead of getting in the car and worrying about parking.
Sure.
And I think that we really have to. Government has to do a better job of investing locally. And I think if I had $1 million, I would really try to spread that out to as many bids as possible to make sure that they really make impacts in the communities where constituents live.
I think that's a great answer. And of course, it made me have another question. So as I mentioned earlier, I worked in Newark, right? I worked in Newark for 16 years. And I had front seat to many of the changes as Newark, was often called the Phoenix rising from the ashes.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I loved that they did is they created this kind of bus that looped the downtown area, and it was free. And it gave people the opportunity to go to the area businesses and restaurants. They would come in off the train, so they didn't have to drive. And then this bus would pretty much make sure that the mom and pop stores and the other stores, other brand name stores, actually had customers coming in on a regular basis. It even stopped at the NJPAC, the Performing Arts Center. So I'm just wondering if there's any possibility.
I think you just came up with a whole committee and plan yourself. Why ask me? I think, and it brings me back to as we got the $5 fare, the city ticket into Brooklyn for $5. I said there used to be a bus that was on Lawrence on 225th Street that would go up and down, take you to the railroad.
Right.
It's gone.
Right.
But I'm saying, we need a shuttle bus, because if we want people to move here, we want the young people to end up buying a home, but maybe they need, as we rezone areas and talk about apartments and young people coming back, there has to be something for them to do,
It's
living,
true.
right?
It's true.
So, and that's a great idea when you talk about the shuttles. Not only that, because of the seniors, if we had
It would work for them too.
that would be better for them.
Yes.
Because even if they drove part way and they got on the shuttle, they
Right.
knew that every 8 minutes
It
or
was
5
coming.
minutes, it was coming.
Yes.
They could go through their shopping. They could go, as Belmont changes, they can go that way.
Yes.
I mean, and then we need to think about, we want to cut down on people. We have to give people incentives. So, Dawn, kudos to you. You just came up with the best idea.
Well, and listen, I got some funding ideas too. JFK, because they need people to come they come in for layovers, they don't have anything to do, so they can actually have the bus start there, loop around, okay, LaGuardia, loop around.
I can't believe I forgot to say this, but if you think about it, JFK and LaGuardia, we want people we should have the best transportation in Queens, because it should be just good so you can get to the airport and leave. It should be good so you can get off at the airport and stay here and spend your money here, right?
Exactly.
So you've thought, Dawn, this is her committee. This is what Dawn is gonna do. This is what, and this is important. We talk about AirTrain, right?
Yes.
And one of the reasons the AirTrain was built was to reduce the traffic. Has it reduced traffic?
Not really.
On the bandwagon?
Not really. No.
No,
Not
it
really.
hasn't,
Not
because
really.
if you're local, you're not using the AirTrain.
No,
right?
you're not. I mean, and I live between both airports,
Mhm.
and I would tell you, I don't take the train.
Someone will drop you off,
Yes.
or you'll get an Uber. Or
Yes,
a Lyft,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
So
Because to go to AirTrain it doesn't seem smart to me to go that way when I'm supposed to be going that way. So
Right.
I just go the way I'm supposed to.
Right.
Well, thank you, and once you get elected, I'm ready to work on that committee. So now, let's talk about you a little bit more.
Okay.
What neighborhood, you said you live in Rosedale.
Right.
What are your favorite places to go in Queens?
So I have two daughters. I have a 9-year-old and a 20-year-old. And so with my 9-year-old, when the weather is good, we go to this park. She calls it the Blue Park. I think she's kind of outgrown. It's Laurelton West Playground.
Okay.
So we spend a lot of time there in
Okay.
the summer.
Okay.
All right, the other places we like to go is, if I'm not in my office, I'm on Merrick Boulevard talking to my constituents. I get my hair cut or trimmed on Merrick Boulevard, a couple doors down. Jamaica Breeze. If anyone doesn't know where my office is, I say Jamaica Breeze, and they're like, yeah, I'm 3 doors down from Jamaica Breeze. So most of the traffic is the cars. It's never a lot. I think maybe my car probably stays there the longest.
Okay.
But most people are parking, getting their food, getting back out, and keep it moving.
Okay.
So, I live in Rosedale. Like I said, it was because I could afford to live in Rosedale. I spend my money on Merrick Boulevard, and I always say that about our communities. We don't keep our money in the neighborhoods. We need to do a better job.
Yes.
When it comes to grocery stores, certain parts of Queens are really thriving. The turnover of fruits and vegetables is very high, so that way, if you go to Main Street Flushing, those vegetable stands, fruit stands, the turnover of fruits and vegetables is high because of the density,
right, and the density. And I'll tell you, that's something that I'm thinking of for the Nourish spot. This morning, as I jumped out my car, I'm like, I need somebody to build me like a wooden stand, because I could offer fresh fruit and vegetables just like they do on Sutton Boulevard and just like they do in Chinatown and in Flushing. I could be doing the same thing for our community. And I remember, it's funny, when I was working, that's what I would do. I would go riding over to one of these places and get fresh fruits and vegetables, collard greens, kale greens, tomatoes, so that I could make my dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another extension of the Nourish spot that I'm thinking about doing on God Brewer, especially as we approach the holidays, because I know people will be looking for those things, and why not me? Why not me offer that?
Right.
So that's something. So if you're a handyman out there or handy woman, and you know how to build those wooden carts, it would need to have wheels on it.
So
Contact me at the Nourish spot, okay? Our phone number is 718-526-2099. Tell them you heard from me that I need this rolling vegetable stand, because I want to offer you guys fresh fruit and vegetables. I get it at a discounted price, and I would offer you my discounts, because I want to tell the state assembly member this. I don't know if she knows, but some of the supermarkets in our neighborhood, they're price gouging us. And the reason I know that is because I go to the places where they go to get their groceries.
And you see what they
And
sell
I
for.
know what the prices are. And
So that's
honestly,
illegal? And we have to report that.
Yes, well, I'm telling you that I have seen it more than once, okay? And, you know, my mouth is big, hence the Nourish Spot Hour. And so I've actually taken on a couple of the people in the stores and said, oh, I know that you overcharging my $3 for those strawberries because strawberries cost $2.45. Now, I'll give you even $1, okay? But they shouldn't cost $6.99.
No.
Well, they are in a couple of stores on Merrick Boulevard and 108. Now,
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about now.
and I'm telling you, people should not shop there. If I didn't have a business, I'll tell you this honest to goodness truth. If I didn't have a business and I just had free time, I would be outside in front of this picture to make sure that people didn't buy food from there. Because they are price gouging. I mean, the prices that they are charging people for food, to me, is criminal.
And I think that's one of the things, you know, this is particular, I think, to African American communities of having food deserts, price gouging. And I've seen a lot of people complain to me and other elected officials, but I always believe in the power of the pen and do it exactly what you said, is that when you see these things happening, don't just think that someone else will do it. Be your own advocate.
Yes.
And my girls, it's really funny, like I'll say that and they'll say things to me, I'm like, oh gosh, they're gonna try to advocate with me now. That's not the idea. But I think that's really important that we empower people to say that this is subpar and we're not going to purchase from you anymore. Right. But it's also incumbent upon us to identify spaces where we can bring in those fresh fruits and vegetables. Yes. I know Councilman Miller did that with Parsons Boulevard and making sure there's a farmer's market over there. Yes. A couple of times a week, the Jamaica Farmers Market. There was a farmer's market by Basin Boulevard, but a lot of times we're not supporting them, and that's a problem too. And sometimes we don't know about them, because I mean, I would tell you, I didn't know that there was one on Parsons or Baisley, okay? So the one that the stores that I'm familiar with is on Sutton, because I was coming back and forth from work, off the Long Island Railroad, and of course I happened upon the food stands over there, so that's why I know. Right. But if you're not knowledgeable of them, then of course people can't go to them, and they go to around the corner to the store, because they believe that the people in the stores are actually offering them fair pricing. But I'm here to tell you that they're not. Okay. So 3 more questions, and I think we'll be almost time to close. And I really appreciate I'm done. She's finished with her pineapple ginger. So if you want one, go on into the Nourish Spot located at 10705 Guy Arborough Boulevard. We're open till 7 p.m. today. So now, why should we vote for you to become Queensborough president? And I want to make sure this is on the ballot, this early voting. We're voting right now for you, right? No, it's not so fast. It will be a special election. Okay. Because the borough president, the election for the district attorney is now. Okay. Saturday early voting up until November 5th. Okay. That's going on now. Okay. Whoever's the winner, kind of know who it is, whoever the winner is of that, then there's a period where the governor could appoint or the governor could wait. And our governor has a tendency, he hasn't done any special to kind of wait for things to take course. So we'll see. But in the frame of reference is the last special election we had was for the public advocate, because Letitia James became our attorney general, and that took place in January, February. Okay. So we think that the election will be in February. Okay, all right. You hear that? But why you should vote for me is, and this is one of the things I didn't talk about before, is we did talk about like our teenagers and crime and teenagers having a space. And one of the reasons I also want to run for borough president is because if you're parents of teenagers, you see that they go to school, you want them to do well, and they come back. But for a lot of children, it's more, that's a whole growing period. And sometimes a lot of us can be afraid of teenagers, but we don't have enough community centers or places for them to just go and chill and relax. And not every teenager is they're not out to get you. They
Right.
want like, they just want to live. You
Right.
should hear them.
Right.
They just want to live.
That's what they say, let me live.
Let me live, that's what they say. So I want to say that as a borough president, I really want to work with developers to make sure they're putting in community spaces for our children, for our
Wonderful.
teens.
That's
so they have a
wonderful.
place where they can go and hang out and play basketball or swim or
Learn,
play hockey
look,
or
or learn coding, or I mean, there's
Right,
so many
we
things.
have-
Architecture,
Yeah.
because you know, in some of these communities, other communities, that's what they're doing.
Right.
They give them opportunities to learn, you know, architecture at a young age. You know, like I said, coding and the things that you're saying. So I think yes, that is
We
so
have,
important.
and I'll give you an example. In the Cambria Heights Library downstairs, they have like a studio where they've
Wow.
interviewed me there before.
Okay.
There's teens there. They
Okay.
come, they do their work, and then they have the audio visual equipment and computers and so forth.
That's
So
lovely.
something like that. Our libraries and our schools have come those go-to or de facto spaces, but we need to make sure. I remember growing up, a lot of my friends, we would go play basketball. I played basketball in high school. We would
Okay.
go to the Lost Battalion and play.
Right.
But I'm saying like that should be
That's
should
only
be the
one
norm.
place.
It's
Right.
one place.
Right. That's one place.
And if you're from, and the PAL was a big place to go
Yes.
to, and I remember the Big Apple summer games that
Right.
used to happen in the city of New York.
And in Cambria, they used to have the Cambria High Sports Association, because when I was young, we used to play baseball and softball, but I don't even know if they're still in
Yeah,
existence anymore.
we've had a couple of initiatives like that, but we can't get the buy-in from the community. So there are softball leagues that are still, baseball leagues that are still there, but they're
Right.
not as robust as they used to be.
Right.
But still having spaces for our teens to feel comfortable. And you know, I think one of the things we have to, we sectionalize our people. So I want to say from the cradle to the grave, in this borough, you should have a place where you feel, other than your home, where you're welcome.
That's lovely.
And for me, it comes to those senior centers, making sure that they're fully funded for our teens to have real good spaces where they could feel they could be themselves and feel
And safe, yes.
where you know where if they're dealing with issues, and you talk about in Southeast Queensland the shootings we've been having, and they're young people, is because we're missing them.
Yeah.
I can be sad all I want, but that's not helping them. We talk about Erica Ford and what she's doing.
Right.
You know, we have these crises. Those places should be housed in our community centers where children always feel they have a place to go to. So for me, running for borough president, it is a challenge. I don't see enough women that are out there really taking, and it's a big step, don't get me wrong. And I don't say it lightly, and I understand, you know, putting myself out there, being a single mom, trying to, you know, raise 2 kids and being an immigrant, and all of those things I think really speaks to what this borough is about.
It does.
And it's taking a chance, and I'm asking people to take a chance on me. I didn't come out from, I was never elected before the assembly. I didn't run around in political circles. I never worked for elected officials. I'm not a district leader. So for me to run for office, it was always about getting off the sidelines, stop complaining about what you see, and get involved. And then when the chance came for me to do it, I said, why not me?
That's
and it's
right.
an open seat, and I'm saying, why not me again?
That's right. Why not?
And that's why I'm running, and I really hope that, you know, as the time goes on and I meet people and we talk about my platform and what I want to do for the Borough of Queens, that we have great ideas like yours and bring those things to fruition.
Okay.
Because through me, I think we can do all of these things that are possible.
I do too. I think so too. So the last question, I ask all my guests this question, is how do you nourish yourself?
I am bad at that, Dora. I am still trying to find balance, and it's not easy, and I think it's the whole, like, I was in your story the other day, we were talking about that.
Yes.
I was telling you about my daughter,
Yes.
and you said, it's okay, and I was feeling bad, and I'm still working on that. So one of the things I try to do is that I make sure, I try to get a babysitter to be home with her, as opposed to being like, I have other babysitters, but
Right.
being home, making sure that she's in bed by 9:30 is
Right.
important to me.
Right.
Because she gets up every morning and runs track at school. So
Right.
those things are important. But my health is like, when I go to your store, I feel like it's gonna be a good day because I know I'm gonna be nourished.
Right.
But if I'm not, because I don't always prepare my own meals because I'm on the run.
Right.
And when you're in a campaign mode, you cannot be your best self health-wise. So what I try to do is In the morning before I pick up my phone, I do my own wellness check.
Okay.
Is everything working? Am I okay? Take a breath.
Right.
Be thankful.
Yes.
By the time I put my feet on the floor, I'm thankful. I'm grateful I got up this morning.
Right.
And I thank God as I go through. But then, the day gets crazy. But at least every morning I try to take minutes and breathe and just be thankful and know what my schedule is for that day and just try to be in the moment. And I'm not always successful, but I'm a work in progress.
Well, look, that's wonderful. I would say, I need to figure out how to get the Nourish spot at the state capitol, so that you can always you can always call downstairs and we can send somebody up to your office, so that you can be nourished. State Assembly Member Hyman, thank you very, very much. You guys, you have to know there's 4 beautiful young ladies out there waiting for the assembly member to take them to a Halloween party. They look so, so cute. And it's just funny. Can you open the door and just tell them to come in real quick so we can close out the show with the 4 young ladies, especially Nyla. Let them all come on, because they are the future. And they're the reason why I believe that State Assembly Member Alicia Hyman is the right person for the job. This is Nyla. This is Jolie. Come on, we can't see you. This is A.B. and Asha. Say hello to all the people. This is the Nourish Spot Hour. And with that, I'm going to say, see you next week. And remember, you are what you put into yourself.
Say hi, everybody. Wait. Yeah, I can see. Okay.